Summer's supposed to be the easy season. So why are so many people quietly Googling a therapist between summer Fridays? Because more daylight doesn't fix the hard stuff. Sometimes it just turns the volume up. Grow does therapy differently. Therapy is not only for when you're in crisis. Grow Therapy is here for all the moments when you decide you want more. More support, more clarity, more tools. Mental health isn't a destination you reach, it's something you build, and Grow makes that easier. Grow connects you with thousands of high-quality licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. The therapist you want takes your insurance on Grow. Grow accepts over 125 insurance plans. Sessions average $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/booknow today to get started. That's growtherapy.com/booknow. growtherapy.com/booknow. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
Hi, folks. If, like me, you are a little bit of a pop culture aficionado, you have likely heard the story about the Odyssey. You might know that upon its release, New York's only IMAX 70mm theater ran the film right around the clock. They had 2 a.m. screenings. They had staff working midnight to 8 a.m. shifts. And Variety actually sent a writer to cover one of those 2 a.m. showings, which happened to be sold out. Across the Atlantic, London's BFI IMAX sold out every single one of its screenings, 8 weeks of them, and they had fans that were flying in from Atlanta, from Ireland, from Switzerland to see those screenings. May I remind you, this is for a story that is thousands of years old. Christopher Nolan's version of the Odyssey has taken in nearly $300 million in its opening weekend alone. This is based on a poem, of course, that has already traveled through being oral performance, translated into theater, painting, comics, novels, and of course, earlier film renditions as well. But my very hot take on it that I'll invite you to be thinking through is that critics may actually look at the long history of the Odyssey and decide that Christopher Nolan's version is actually the most creative. Now, I would invite you to debate. Since it is not the original version, is that fair? Can that even be possible? And that's why today I would like to talk to you about cover songs. Cover songs are a way in, I believe, to the AI conversation. And I've been digging around to find out actually that there are researchers that have studied cover songs. They have studied the philosophy of cover songs. And I'm going to present to you a resource that if you are kind of curious about that idea, you can take this resource and you can host that conversation for yourself. I think cover songs are perfect for the AI conversation because they beg the question, where exactly is the line between just average imitation and transformative interpretation? So again, another question, a debatable that you might want to talk over with a friend, a family member. Can a cover song version of a song ever be truly better than the original? Why or why not? How do you decide? And what do we mean when we say better? Does it have to be more polished? Must it have evidence for being more popular? I'd like to invite you to think about Aretha Franklin's version of Respect. Now, this is a song that I would guess many of us are familiar of. And when I was digging into the research on cover songs, I came across Victoria Malawi's work, who calls this a reauthoring. Because the song Respect, I thought it was originally by Aretha Franklin. It is not. It's actually a cover song of a version by Otis Redding. Now, when Aretha Franklin does her version of Respect, she changes out the melody, that iconic spelling out of the word respect. Now, that was also a choice specifically made by Aretha Franklin, and the context of the song has been changed as well. I'm curious how many people even know that Otis Redding did the song first. Is it fair to think of Aretha Franklin's version as better? Does it even matter? It might not, but I would argue that a successful cover is a demonstration of some interesting skills that we want to be thinking about as educators in this era of AI. Let me take you back to Christopher Nolan and his version of the Odyssey, because for those of us who teach literature, one of the writers who has done what's regarded as one of the best translations, Emily Wilson, has commented on the film version, and Emily Wilson saying that there are some themes that she would argue the film misses out on. How much actually can you change of an original's themes or characters before you've totally radically changed it into something different? What are the rules around covering an original text, if there are any? And I think that the fact that we're seeing a lot of scholars debate and disagree is evidence that Nolan's choices as a filmmaker really matter. And it's also a great debate on interpretation carrying the possibility of finding brand new insight. So all of this really is consolidated into three concepts, I think. Our ability to reflect, our ability to re-envision, and our capacity as humans to rework. And I'm hoping you're seeing the through line with those concepts in our new era of learning and building with AI. Because yes, AI systems, LLMs, they can reproduce a style, they can generate variations, they can summarize, but it's not variation alone that's interpretation, right? Changing the genre or the vocabulary does not necessarily designate that there is new understanding. And I think we want to be really demonstrating the significance of human judgment to our young people. So reflect, re-envision, rework. If I am learning with AI, if I am trying to create a new version of something, first and foremost, I have to reflect on what I think is important about the information that I'm dealing with, the story, the music, the sound, the context that I am in. What are the patterns? What are the possibilities, right? Those are some key questions. Re-envision, what could this become? Once I have amassed a lot of data or information or inspiration, I begin thinking about what is even possible to do. Christopher Nolan's version of the Odyssey is really interesting because technology has made it possible for a completely new type of telling of that story. The reworking, that human discernment, that judgment of what do I keep, what do I cut, what do I adapt, and critically, why? I would point learners right now to the debate, to the argument around the Odyssey and Christopher Nolan's version to express just how important, as an artist, as a thinker, that discernment is. Because that is the skill that's going to be useful to us when we are working with AI. It's our decisions, where it is helpful, where it is not. I think it could also be really useful to play back to back those two different versions of the song Respect, and just to quantify and qualify the different choices that were made in the cover version. We talk to our students a lot about being creative, and I think actually art can be very helpful in making those creative choices visible. Now, I want to point us back to a resource that I know many educators are thinking about when they're thinking about AI, and that's UNESCO's AI competency framework. And that describes students as co-creators, not passive users, but co-creators. And again, I think a really great analogy for that is thinking about the way that a musician might cover an existing song. Covers, again, I think in my mind, I'm a huge fan of listening to different cover songs. And I think they are proof, actually, that human creativity does not mean creating something out of nothing. All artists are remembering, borrowing, translating, recombining, and revising. I think creativity actually shows up in the relationship between what it is that we've inherited and what we do with it. Now, the resource that I mentioned that I have created to hopefully get people thinking a little bit more about that and the way that we can engage our peers and our students in the conversation about AI and creativity through the lens of cover songs is called What Exactly is Human Nature? And if you are a music fan, you might have a hunch that this is a resource that's actually based on the song Human Nature and the many different renditions of it. So here's what you're going to find on this webpage. It's an interactive timeline that's going to let you listen backwards through the history of a song. I recently came across a YouTube orchestral arrangement that had me in my feelings big time. I loved this version of that song. And if I'm being a little bit meta, I also love that the song and the lyrics are describing somebody as an explanation saying, you know what? Why is he this way? It's human nature. And I think in our era of AI, where we're talking a lot about the need to stay human, we've also got to start questioning what actually is human nature? What do we mean by that? I hope that you enjoy the page. It gets you thinking again about what meaningful interpretation requires. And perhaps an argument or a debate about, can you argue which cover is your favorite? Are any of them actually better than the original? Is that even possible? If you'd like to dig into that resource, the link is available for you in the show notes. And if this conversation has you thinking about other entryways into the AI discussion, because again, I think we need to have a wide variety of metaphors to ensure that our peers are engaging, that they do have a seat at the table. And sometimes I think actually by starting with a metaphor, we're even more invitational to people who maybe do not see themselves as technologists or interested in AI. I would argue that AI already has a profound impact on our human concept for creativity. And I would argue what better way to start that conversation than by looking at art. Okay, folks, thanks for listening in. Again, that resource is there for you to check out. If you have thoughts, if you want to debate which version of the song is the best, you'll also find our email address in the show notes. Take care. Hey, real quick, before you leave, whether you are listening or watching this episode, you should know that it has been produced by Saghir Mohammed, who has helped us grow the YouTube version of the show by thousands. You may have actually noticed that the audio and video quality of the show has gone up significantly since he's joined our team. You should also know that he has edited and produced thousands of podcast episodes. And we know that many of our listeners may also be dreaming about starting a show of their own, or perhaps your school community is looking to level up on their school podcast. If you are looking for one of the very best podcast producers on the planet, please be sure to head on over to the show notes of this episode to learn more about booking a discovery call or learning more about the remarkable work Saghir has done for Shifting Schools and that he might do for you as well. See you next week.